It's time for the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, talking District 1 and 2 activities week in, week out in the great state of Idaho. Brandon Bainey joined by our North Idaho resident and expert, Ryan Scaggs. What's up, Scaggs?
Not much. Just some days you got to have some chocolate milk.
Okay.
I'm stealing them for my kids' lunch. So
stealing from your child, Ryan. I'm disappointed.
Right.
As always, every time we start the show and we bring Ryan on camera, he's always got to take a drink of whatever he's sipping. Today it was chocolate milk. I'll be honest, milk, I get sick. I can't drink milk. I used to drink it all the time as a kid, but now as an adult, even chocolate milk, it just makes my stomach all upset.
Yeah, I grew up on drinking lactose-free milk, and usually it's like the fat-free. This one is not fat-free, and I can tell. Like, I'm used to drinking the white water, I guess, but yeah, I don't know. Like, that was what I grew up on because of my sister had like a milk allergy. So yeah, but this is much different, and you know, it was supposed to be like lower sugar because I got it for my kid and had more protein. It's not great.
Yikes. I was tempted to go with drinking the white water for the podcast title, but I think people driving by not knowing what we're talking about would, I'm not going to touch that.
Yeah, that's got a whole different connotation to it.
People don't overreact on the internet to things they don't know anything about. Right?
Yeah, right. I'm just saying something off pure glance and then making an educated decision on that. Yeah, I'm sure that never happens.
Yeah, definitely not. So let's get into it. And maybe as we're talking organically, I'll come up with a good podcast title. Fans might be wondering, where the bleep were you guys last week? Well, sometimes life gets in the way. All right. And we try to have perfect attendance. We will occasionally miss a week here or there.
Yeah.
As the school year goes along, because hey, we're both busy guys too, right?
Yeah.
We don't just podcast. We got other things to do.
Yeah, I run my own business. I don't just get to flap my gums about high school sports, and sometimes I have to be a dad and a husband too. So yeah, life gets in the way sometimes, but it's all good. So
yeah,
more hits than misses, they say, right?
There we go. More hits than misses. That's the podcast title. I knew you'd come up with something good.
I always have those isms, coach speak. I do it for 15 years. You can't get rid of it by that time. You're like, all right, yeah, let's just throw out some useless word spaghetti.
Two things you're going to get on this Prepcast. We do a Prepcast for every region of the state: Treasure Valley, Magic Valley, East Idaho, North Idaho. We also do the Idaho 8-man Prepcast as well, where we talk about just 8-man football. Two things you're only going to get on the North Idaho Prepcast. You're not going to get anywhere else besides, what we're talking about. The Scaggsisms, all your little quips and sayings, and also the Skaggsies Awards. I call them the Skaggsies. Of course, you call them the North Idaho all football, all volleyball, all basketball teams, etc.
Yep.
No, none of our other podcasters do that. So
because I go above and beyond, right? It's about the experience.
That's right. Well, I'm looking forward to all of those postseason teams that you hand out. But first, we got to get to the postseason, and we're doing that in some sports, but in others, the postseason is wrapped up. State golf tournament was last week, Ryan. The 5A meet was at the Lewiston Country Club. 4A meet was at the University of Idaho course in Moscow. No champion. Boise, Treasure Valley swept everything. Team titles, individual titles. Very anticlimactic, but we did want to highlight some of our North Idaho finishers. Let's start on the girls' side, where the Coeur d'Alene girls actually took second place. They ended up finishing quite a distance away from Rocky Mountain, the champion, but for the Vikings, second place trophy, they'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, you get the red trophy going home with you. That's not a bad showing. And we knew that Rocky team was loaded. I think that was I don't want to say a foregone conclusion, but the way they had been playing later in the year looked like a shoe-in with that lineup to run away with the state title. But a great showing by the Viking ladies. I think that was an absolutely decent showing, especially on a difficult course. I heard that, Lewiston Country Club played pretty difficult for the state tournament. Pins had changed a little bit. So I think that, if you're a coach, take a second state, go home with it and be happy and smile the whole way.
Yeah, that's awesome season for the Coeur d'Alene girls. Stella Dietz was the top finisher for the Vikings, taking eighth. She shot an 86 on day one, 82 on day two. So she finished eighth overall. The highest finisher from North Idaho on the girls' side, though, was, of course, Molly Sibley from Lewiston, playing on her home course, Scaggs. And this is what makes sports thrilling sometimes and also absolutely crushing sometimes.
Yeah, Howard Cosell, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Yeah.
Yeah. So going in the 18th hole, day two, Molly Sibley has a 1-stroke lead over Ella Arnzen from Timberline, and it's her home course. So she gets up to the tee, into the drink, splashes it into the pond. So that's a 2-stroke penalty, right? Because you've got to basically take the penalty because you're not going to play the ball. You're not going to play the ball where it lies, right? You're not going to the bottom of the water to get that. So 2-stroke penalty to start for Sibley. Arnzen ends up parring the hole and making up that 1-stroke difference to not just tie, but win it outright. Molly Sibley falls by a single stroke, 151 to 152. Just heartbreaking for Molly Sibley on her home course.
Yeah, and that's just, everybody can sit there and throw stones from your glass houses or whatever, but we've all been there. I mean, I've played in enough of those scrambles to know that getting in the drink is easy. I mean, there's 350 yards of green grass, and you're going to find that 25 yards of the drink. So, but it doesn't take away from the effort. I mean, her and her opponent played a phenomenal couple of rounds at state, and to finish, down to the last hole. I mean, that's an impressive affair. And, I would say, when your opponent does that and you're able to par out, hats off. I mean, you did what you needed to do to get it done. And it's a heartbreaking loss, but still a great career and great season. So
that's why golf is the most frustrating game there is to play. No doubt.
Yes, there's many. Yeah. I mean, we're on a Prepcast that has kids listening, so I'll refrain from any language stuff. But yeah, I've heard many a name for the sport of golf. Yes, there's a Robin Williams bit about it. You can go watch that.
Now I'm going to spend the rest of my day doing that. Okay. Boys 5A, Coeur d'Alene takes third in the team standings. They almost got second. They only fell behind Eagle by 2 strokes for second place. And honestly, it was very tight at the top. Boise was your team champion, but they only won by 5 strokes. So Coeur d'Alene was right there.
Yeah, we knew that they were a good team coming in. I mean, we'd seen the success that they'd had this season, and we knew it was going to come down to state. And I think, the teams that you pretty much pictured to be in the mix were there. So it doesn't take away. I mean, third place finish, you're still getting a trophy going home. I believe it's the green one, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, you want that blue one, but that's still a great finish. Top 3 at state with 3 really respectable programs right there. You're finishing with Eagle and Boise. It says a lot about the type of program you're building, and just wasn't your year to get the championship, but you're at least in the mix. You're in striking distance in the last few holes. That's what you ask for.
Grant Potter, highest finisher from Coeur d'Alene. He takes 5th overall. After day one, he shot a 76. He was way back on the leaderboard, but he rallied on day 2, Ryan, by shooting a 67, second best round of the day on Saturday. And that lifted him to 1 under par. He takes 5th overall. The highest finisher from North Idaho, though, was Trey Lambert from Lake City. He finished tied for 3rd with Trevor Garris from Capital. Garris was the 3-time district champion from the Boise area. Lambert finishes 3 under, and he's a little more consistent. 70 on Friday, 71 on Saturday. So congratulations. And then Max Hosfeld from Lake City also finished tied for 6th. So Lake City had a couple of good individuals up top. Coeur d'Alene had the better depth overall.
Yeah, and I believe Lambert's only a freshman too. So I mean, you look at him, he's going to be around for a few years, being able to play that competitive on what was a pretty good course and a competitive course down at Lewiston. I would look for him to be back. I mean, obviously golf plays well. If you play well anywhere, you're going to keep yourself in the mix. So I think, being able to go there, and I believe he just missed out on a shootout too at the end, like a playoff. So
Yeah.
That's another good sign for a young group in that, nucleus for that Lake City team.
Definitely. 4A meet was at University of Idaho golf course in Moscow. North Idaho teams taking home third place trophies. Moscow on the boys side takes third. Sandpoint on the girls side brings home the third place trophy. Chase Lavelle from Moscow, or Chase Lovell, he ends up taking second in the individual race, only 4 strokes behind the winner, Jackson Wright of Valley View. So way to go, Chase.
Yeah, no, great finish from him, and respectable finishes from North Idaho in District 1 and 2, respectively, with Moscow finishing in the top 3 and Sandpoint finishing in the top 3. I think that's a good showing, and a lot you can ask for at the finish of a fall golf season. And I'll say this too: the weather was absolutely phenomenal for golf in North Idaho last weekend. I mean, you couldn't have gotten any better conditions. I believe down in Lewiston it was in the low 80s still. So I mean, you get temperatures like that with nice weather, the course is going to play fast and play, really clean.
Yeah. Highest individual finisher from North Idaho on the girls' side was Taylor Meyer from Sandpoint. She takes 4th overall. And you're right. Weather-wise, it was perfect. I'd say we're 2 for 2 on this fall golf thing, right? 2 years, yeah. The first 2 years, we've had pretty fantastic weather for the state tournament. So I know there was a lot of consternation up north from the 5A athletic directors about moving golf to the fall, but I don't know. You have to say, at least so far, it's been a pretty good success.
I mean, you take the first 2 weeks of October historically have been pretty nice. So it's the next couple weeks is where we've seen it get real messy real quick. So, but yeah, I mean, historically, you look at weather up here, it's never really been much of an issue, knock on wood. But yeah, no, I look at that as if it gets to come back. There's some other great courses up here that I think need some love. I mean, you look at the likes of the Idaho Club, Stone Ridge, Avondale, even Prairie Falls has been turned around really nice too over in Post Falls. There's some courses I think that are deserving of a state tournament. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so congrats to all of our golfers. Let's move to the next wave of postseason events, Ryan. District soccer, boys and girls. Are you ready for my alter ego, Brackets Bainey, to make his return?
Hit me up, man. Show me what you got, because I know that it's been an absolute madhouse the last couple of days.
Yes, it has. All right. So if you're watching this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or Facebook page, I'm going to share my screen. You'll be able to see the brackets there, and you can follow along that way. If you're listening on IdahoSports.com or wherever you download podcasts, Apple, Google, etc., it's all good. We've got the district brackets on the homepage at IdahoSports.com, and you can follow along there. Let's start with the 5A. District 1 and 2 tournament, Ryan, where it's like we're in the month of October, Halloween thriller slasher movies. Don't let the killer inside the house. Lake City is back inside the house. Lake City came into districts as the 3 seed on the girls' side. They walk out as the district champs. We know what kind of program they've had over the past couple of years. They scuffled a little bit in the regular season, but here they are back at state. They beat Lewiston in the championship match yesterday, 3-2 in overtime with the golden goal.
Yeah, no, a great finish by the T-Wolves there. And that's a team that historically, I mean, we've seen what they've been able to do in years past and losing some of their leadership, but still there's a nucleus there of girls that know how to play in the postseason. And, that came to shine. And so, Lewiston playing for their life, in the play-in game. That's going to be interesting to see what kind of shakes out from that one between them and Coeur d'Alene. Not Coeur d'Alene, but Centennial in the play-in game. That game does get to be in Lewiston, so I think there's a bit of an advantage there as far as keeping the fresh legs. But Lake City getting the district championship is huge, especially coming out of the 3 seed.
They had lost to Lewiston twice in the regular season, 5-3 and 3-2. This time they get the 3-2 win. They're headed back to state, of course. They came in last year as one of the top teams. They came in undefeated, right? Lost to Centennial in that semifinal, 1-0. And then they won the 3rd place match over Rocky Mountain on PKs. So I know that the team is very motivated to get back and put on a good showing. So look out, everybody. Lake City's back at state. I think that's going to be bad news for those teams from the Boise Valley.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you got the postseason experience, and that does matter when you get into the mix. I mean, I think that maybe the regular season doesn't mean much. Just like as you coach, you would say flush it because you got a new season in front of you. So, winning the district title, that's huge. And then, on to state, see what you can do. The rankings are going to kind of shake out and see how seeding goes. And that'll be I'm looking at Lewiston Centennial matchup, though. That's going to be a tough matchup for the Bengals, but certainly a winnable match, I believe, for them. But I'd love to see two District 1-2 teams make it.
Yep. Emily Medina scores the golden goal in the 90th minute for Lake City. Big thanks to the Coeur d'Alene Press for that info there, as Lake City wins again in overtime. Lewiston now gets to play on their own field, right? This state play-in match is at Lewiston. They're going to play Centennial. Centennial was the 10 seed coming out of their district tournament, Scaggs. They kind of just got hot at the right time, and that's always the most dangerous type of team to be facing. So you're right. Just because, Centennial's a 10 seed, that doesn't mean diddly. So
we've seen Centennial in other sports as a 10 seed come through and make a lot of noise. Obviously that's in boys basketball, but yeah, we've seen it before.
Lake City knows all about that, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Yep. So congratulations to Lake City district champions there. And by the way, before the championship match against Lewiston, heck of a first round matchup last Saturday as well between Coeur d'Alene and Lake City. Also, crosstown rivalry. Lake City won 2-0, and both teams left it all out there on the field.
Yeah.
And so for Coeur d'Alene, a great season comes to an end earlier than they wanted to. Also, overall, the three teams at the top this year were all just outstanding and battled throughout. So congratulations there. 5A boys tournament looks like this, Scaggs. Speaking of crosstown showdowns, Lake City and Coeur d'Alene 1 and 2 will play Wednesday at 3:30 at Lake City. I might dip over and check a little bit of this out. I don't live that far from Lake City. We're recording this on Wednesday the 11th. So what do you think happens in this match here? Both teams won easily in the first round. Lake City 4-0 over Lewiston, Coeur d'Alene 5-1 over Post Falls.
Honestly, I think Lake City wins like 2-0. Like if it's gonna be like 2-0, 2-1, it's gonna be a really close match. I think Lake City it's going to be kind of on a sloppier field too. I mean, we've had a lot of rain yesterday and this morning. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I'm looking at Lake City to probably pull this one out in a close one. It's going to probably come down to the last 10 minutes of the match. That's what I'll put my stamp on that one. So,
all right. Lake City is undefeated. They swept the regular season series with Coeur d'Alene. Each of those matches though, 1-0. I'm calling the upset. I'm going with the Vikings. Let's go.
All right. Picking opposite. I like it. So I think either of these teams make it to state. Coeur d'Alene's got a great lineup too. And so even in the loss, I still look at whoever comes out of that playing Eagle. I like, Coeur d'Alene or Lake City winning that match. I think both these teams are worthy of being seeded in the state tournament, just based on their body of work. So, yeah.
Eagle was the 5 seed coming out of the districts in District 3. Sneaky team. You definitely want to win and get that auto bid to state if you can. All right, 4A district soccer, Ryan. We had the first round match on the girls' side on Tuesday. Moscow shuts out Lakeland 5-0, sets up the championship Thursday in Sandpoint. Number 2 Moscow, number 1 Sandpoint. It's like the Red Sox and the Yankees at this point. They've played so many times over the last several years. Sandpoint's undefeated season was spoiled by Moscow 2 years ago. I don't know what else we can say about this matchup except it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it historically ends up, especially when they meet in the district tournament in the final, like it's always a great match. And that you could be a down team and Moscow could be down and still come into this one and still be fighting. So, every time we've picked in this one, it's like we've been snake bit. So I don't want to say anybody in a blowout. On paper, but games are never played on paper. But on paper, Sandpoint's obviously the favorite in my opinion, just based on body of work and what happened in the regular season. Moscow always makes things interesting. They make you play ugly. They make you win ugly if you're going to win. So, the Bears are a scrappy bunch. So it could be a tight match. I'm going to go lean Bulldogs on this one, but it would not surprise me one bit if Moscow steals one here and sneaks in the backside.
Look at the history between these two teams. So 2 years ago, Sandpoint was undefeated at districts. Moscow gets them 1-0 in that district championship game, and Moscow gets to go to state. That was 2 years ago. Then last year in the regular season, Sandpoint wins 2-1 and 1-0. And then they beat Moscow in the district championship 1-0. Then you look at this year. Sandpoint won the first matchup 1-0, and then they tied 2-2. So the last 3, 4, 5, 6 matchups between these teams have been decided by 1 goal every single time, or it's been a tie.
Yeah, this could go to PKs. I mean, it really could.
Neither coach wants that.
No, they don't. But I mean, realistically, I think you could see this match go in that direction too. Both just, especially with a lot on the line in a berth to state there's only one bid. So you win, you're in. This could come down to the 90th or, I don't want to say 90th minute, but it's going to come down to the very end.
Yeah. I'm just something in my gut tells me Sandpoint, and something's telling me Aaliyah Strock is going to be involved somehow. That's just
there's a lot of athleticism on the field for that Bulldog group, and that could definitely show up. And, if you need a little boost there, Strock, we've seen her before in other sports, but she's a heck of an athlete. So, I mean, I realistically I'll say it right now, PKs. I think it goes PKs.
I feel like one of those magicians that holds the card up. I'm thinking Sandpoint. Aaliyah Strock.
Yeah, you're Johnny Carson there.
We'll see. We'll see how that goes. It's going to be fantastic. That is going to be on Thursday in Sandpoint. On the boys' side, same exact matchup here. It's Sandpoint and Moscow, 1 and 2. They are playing today as we're recording this Wednesday, October 11th. They'll play at 3:30. Look at this opening round matchup, though. Moscow and Lakeland deadlocked at zeros through regulation. The first overtime and the second overtime goes to penalty kicks. Moscow wins 5-4 on PKs.
I look at just based on what had to happen on Monday. Sandpoint. And I don't want to say by a bunch, but I think Sandpoint wins this one. I think that, offense wins the day with the Bulldogs. And it's going to rest on, I think the goalkeeper is going to play a big part in this game, but I really do look at Sandpoint winning this one.
And so
that's a really good team. That Sandpoint team's good.
Yes. And that Moscow Lakeland match could have gone either way, where a little bit of controversy towards the end of the second overtime between these two, where Lakeland was lining up for a penalty kick. And again, the Coeur d'Alene Press had all this great info. Austin Parks scores on a penalty kick, and Lakeland thinks, okay, we've just won because it's in overtime. It's golden goal, right? First team to score wins. And they walk off and celebrate on the field. A referee comes in and says, nope, you had a player offside. And so they nullify the goal. And then Moscow gets the ball on the free kick, and Lakeland thought we should have been able to take the penalty kick again. Instead, they gave the ball to Moscow. It goes to penalty kicks in after 2 overtimes. And so I don't know, Lakeland went from thinking they had won to then having to rally and try to compete. And that's always a tough thing mentally. So interesting opening round game between Lakeland and Moscow.
Drama. Yeah, a little drama in that one.
For sure. So, but I'm with you. I like Sandpoint here in this boys matchup. All right, let's go to the real life fields in Post Falls, where the 3A Intermountain League district tournament's taking place. On the girls' side, you've got the championship Wednesday at 4:00. Coeur d'Alene Charter the 1 against Bonners Ferry the 3. Bonners Ferry nipped Timberlake in yesterday's semifinals 1-0. And so Timberlake, the 2 seed, is Dunsky. It's Coeur d'Alene Charter and Bonners Ferry. Winner gets to go to state. Loser has to qualify via a play-in match against a very good team from District 3. It's going to be either Homedale or Fruitland, and that's going to be a tough matchup.
Yeah, no, I look at That one, but I like Charter. I mean, I think we've seen them in the past do really well. It's usually at state where they get tripped up a little bit, but coming out of District 1-2, Coeur d'Alene Charter, I think, is going to be the stronger group. They've historically, I mean, they had a great season this year too. Bonners Ferry has made a great run. I mean, look at that they've held 2 opponents scoreless in their first 2 games at District, and especially holding that Timberlake team scoreless there's a lot of much to be said about that effort. So, I mean, Bonners Ferry is a scrappy group. They could, like you said, that play-in game, you're looking there, though, with a really tough District 3 team. No easy days in high school soccer, especially at 3A level when you get, some 2A schools sprinkled in there, though, too, with some great athletes. So, I think Charter, though, wins the day and ultimately punches that auto berth to the state tournament.
Yep. And on the boys' side, same exact matchup, different seeds. Bonners Ferry the 1, Coeur d'Alene Charter the 2. Bonners Ferry beats Orofino in yesterday's semis 4-0. Coeur d'Alene Charter and Timberlake went to PKs, went to penalty kicks. Timberlake was the 3 seed, Coeur d'Alene Charter the 2 seed. They were tied at 1-1 through 2 overtimes. Coeur d'Alene Charter wins on the penalty kick shootout 4-2. And so tonight, at the real life fields in Post Falls, 6:00, Bonners Ferry and Coeur d'Alene Charter. Again, winner automatically gets to go. And this time, hey, so does the loser. So congratulations to the Badgers and the Panthers, both going to state.
Yeah, no, look at that. What a great matchup. I mean, for on the turf, and being able to see those 2 teams play each other in the district championship game. Obviously, I think both have earned their way to the state tournament. Respectively, obviously the auto bid going to the second place team, but with those 2 teams going at it, I mean, Bonners Ferry, I like that bunch a lot. I mean, there's some good athletes in that group. They're super scrappy. They play really tough. I mean, you look at what they've done. They've won their matches by a total of 7-1. I mean, like going into that last match in the title game. What has Charter got left in the tank after that Timberlake game? I think is much to be said too. So. I think Bonners has the edge, and we'll see what shakes out after tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to see how this all shakes out. They split in the regular season. Coeur d'Alene Charter won the first matchup by a score of 2-1, and then Bonners Ferry got revenge in the rematch 4-2. 2 really good teams, though, both moving on to state. So congratulations there. All right. District volleyball is also starting this weekend, Ryan. We will be posting those brackets as we get them and start filling them in. We have probably 70% of the brackets already up on the site, IdahoSports.com. We've got to fill them in with the teams as they officially clinch their seedings. One thing I did want to say for volleyball quickly, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Wallace from the north and looking like the best team from District 1 and how great it was going to be that they didn't have to do a play-in match despite being the district champion. They do. I was wrong. Big thanks to some people from Wallace for letting me know. I thought it was a 2-year thing where, okay, Wallace last year didn't have the play-in match, so it must be for this year too. They basically trade off with the champion from District 5 and 6, which is a 3-team league as well. And so last year, the champion from the East had to play the play-in match. Wallace didn't have to. This year, Wallace does have to. I still think they're just fine in a play-in match, but it again kind of sucks that they have to do that.
No, you could sound the Price is Right losing horn on that one for, for your advice, but yeah, no, I like the Miners a lot. I think that's going to be a good matchup for them if finding their way in, and actually, I think it could bode well just for going into the state tournament on a bit of a roll. I don't want to jinx anybody and give everybody the kiss of death, but I think that I think they'll be all right in a play-in match. With that lineup that they've got, so they should be good. I don't know what that means coming from me, but that's just my opinion.
No, hey, it looks good there for sure. So, all right, let's wrap up with some football talk here, Scaggs, where we had no shortage of exciting games with playoff implications. I guess exciting isn't the word. We had important games that were fairly one-sided that made the playoff picture somewhat clearer. Post Falls went over to Lewiston, and Devin Burns put on a show. Devin Burton had a couple of rushing touchdowns as well. Post Falls wins pretty convincingly 42-21. Coeur d'Alene did the same against Lake City in the crosstown matchup, winning 31-7. Lewiston now behind the 8 ball a little bit here. We talked about only 2 teams are going to get into the playoffs. There's not going to be an at-large bid coming from this league. And so now Lewiston's got to win out, basically.
Yeah, and I don't know if they can do it. I mean, that's a tall order. I went to that Lake City Coeur d'Alene game. Finally get some eyes on Coeur d'Alene at this point in the season with, some of their new looks, obviously, with Simmons at quarterback. Simmons at quarterback. I mean, that offense looked pretty good. I know it was playing Lake City, and I don't want to talk too poorly about Coach Hout's team. I know that they're playing extremely hard. At times they looked really tough against Coeur d'Alene, and then at times they looked like they still had some struggles. And so, but that Coeur d'Alene team, I just looked for consistency throughout that, the game that I was there, and they looked good. And Jamison Kazar, is a weapon now. They put him in the slot, and then on defense, that guy's making plays. I mean, so I think that having him out of the quarterback position and actually putting him in position to get the ball in his hands without having to throw it makes him a more dangerous offensive team. And you look at some of the weapons around him, that defense is so nasty. I mean, the pressure that they put on, Cherry had no chance for Lake City. He had somebody in his face pretty much 80% of the snaps when he went for dropbacks. He had to hurry, or he was hurried. So, I mean, that Coeur d'Alene defense, that's going to come down. That Post Falls Coeur d'Alene game is going to be an absolute battle. And then we have to do weekly picks. And I won't release my pick yet, but this was probably the hardest of any of them to pick because I just don't know how it's, going to shake out. Is it the rushing attack of Post Falls? Is it, does the Coeur d'Alene back end of that defense let up a little bit and let McCown throw the ball well? Because they got, dudes at receiver too. I mean, is it the defense of Post Falls versus a Coeur d'Alene offense? Can they at least hold them to half the points? It's going to be a battle. It'll be a great game.
Yeah, keep an eye out on IdahoSports.com, social media, Instagram, Facebook. All the Prepcasters are making weekly picks, and hey, no better time than week 7 to start this up. But
when it matters or whatever, but
yeah, it's something new we're trying out. It seemed to get pretty good traction. We're basically picking the most exciting matchup each week from each classification, a pick 6. Essentially, and all the Prepcasters are making their picks. I went 4-2 last week, which isn't bad. And I'll tell you, did you already send in your picks?
I did.
I picked Coeur d'Alene.
Did you?
Yep. What'd you pick? Come on, you can.
I'm looking back to see what I picked when I sent to Logan. I have Post Falls.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I didn't do too bad last week, but I thought Weezer would get the upset. They were close, but they couldn't strike the pay dirt on that one. But otherwise, I would have had a really good week.
Yeah,
week games. But
and I picked West Side. They lost by a point to Declo. So, anyways, that'll be on the IdahoSports.com social media coming up. But this 5A IEL title will be decided over the next 3 weeks. You've got Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls this week, and then Coeur d'Alene and Lewiston in the season finale. Coeur d'Alene could go 0-2 and be out just like that. You know what happened last year, didn't it, to Coeur d'Alene?
Yeah, I mean, what Lewiston team shows up, against Coeur d'Alene, I think is going to be a telling one too. That's going to come down to the last game. But, if they can make things interesting with that offense, we'll see. But, I mean, Lewiston defensively has not looked the same as they have in years past.
We could 2 years ago, they all beat each other, didn't they? Post Falls, Lewiston, Coeur d'Alene. And they all ended up tied for first. And didn't they do a Kansas City playoff?
They did at Moscow High School.
you and I are going to go broadcast that if that happens again.
Absolutely.
We're going to do the playoff. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we end up with a KC tiebreaker. You're talking about excitement. That's a blast right there. So
yeah,
and it's possible. It absolutely is possible. But I think you look at this week's game between Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls. Just breaking down those two teams. Why did I pick Post Falls? I think that secondary is one of the elite groups in the state. I don't know if Coeur d'Alene is going to be able to throw the ball as effectively as they did against Lake City last week. So I think my edge is, I don't think Coeur d'Alene's rushing attack can keep up with Post Falls. But Coeur d'Alene's front 7 is ridiculous too. So, but Post Falls isn't too shabby. So it's kind of like, I think it's going to be one loss on the defensive side of the ball. Somebody gets a turnover and a score. That's going to be the decider.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to see those two duke it out for sure. Let's go to the 4A level. Sandpoint and Lakeland last week. Lakeland still banged up, still without their starting quarterback, Hayden Benson, and Sandpoint wins 49-21. Sandpoint quietly has been doing all this with a new quarterback too, right? Yep. Drew Lehman. He was 7 of 9 for 208 yards, 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers: Connor Hinberg, Jesse Turner, and Max Frank. Cody Brewster, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns on 4 carries. So Lakeland's
been effective.
I'd say so. Lakeland's problem right now is they've got a lot of holes on defense. They're giving it. We saw it in the Post Falls game we did 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now.
3 weeks ago now, yeah.
And they don't have enough bodies. They wear down, right? The depth. They have a lot of two-way players, and they wear down as the game goes on, and that's when you start seeing those big plays develop. And
yeah.
I think Lakeland still gets into the playoffs. They're going to have to go on the road somewhere. They did it last year, almost went to Pocatello and beat the Thunder. But it's Sandpoint's deal now. And Sandpoint is looking at a top 5 seed and at least a home game for the first round.
How big was that win over Lewiston for them? I mean, as far as in the rankings and everything too. So, I mean, that was a massive win for them. You don't want to play shoulda, coulda, wouldas if you're the Bulldogs, but if you'd made the switch at QB a little bit earlier, what the earlier part of the season could have looked like. But down the stretch when it's mattered, man, they've been lights out. And Lehman's been doing a great job. But Brewster, I think, at running back has been the more effective piece I've looked at. Is, they're going to get the ball into Max Frank's hands. So if, he's going to draw a double team or draw the eye of maybe a spy or the extra defender leaving the box if they're going to chase him out there in the flat, you got to be able to make him pay with another athlete. Connor Hinberg's been showing up big too on offense. So, that Sandpoint group, we know they can play defense. They fly around on the defensive side of the ball, and they always have. We've seen more offensive efficiency out of them, and that's making them a more dangerous team. I don't know if we're talking like state championship, hopes like we have the years past, but it's at least a team that's a formidable offense that you gotta pay attention to now.
For sure. 3A, Bonners Ferry Timberlake played the last week of the season. Bonners Ferry did get their second win of the year last Friday over Kellogg, 20-14. Trey Bateman scored late in the fourth quarter to pull off the win, 20-14. Brody Rice also threw a nice touchdown to the tight end, Dakota Heller. I went back and watched it on tape a little bit. Bonners Ferry gets the win there in non-conference. Timberlake had the week off. 2A, this was the big game we talked about. Grangeville and St. Mary's. There's one team coming out of the North this year for the 2A playoffs. That's just the way it's happening.
Yep.
And Grangeville now, it looks like, has pretty much wrapped it up with that 54-26 win over the Lumberjacks.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about making a statement. There it is. I mean, the Bulldogs, we knew were close in a bunch of games early, not close in a couple, but as of late have really, put it together, and they took the bootstraps to the Lumberjacks on Friday night. And that Grangeville team, if they start getting hot and playing with some confidence, that's a team that, with the rushing attack that they've got, that's a team I don't know if I want to face necessarily in a first round game. So that's a dangerous kind of, I don't want to say sleeping giant, but it's certainly somebody that you're not going to take lightly if you hit the postseason.
Troy Long, 191 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground for the Bulldogs in the win. David Goikoa is a great quarterback for this Grangeville team as well. And they've just got athletes, it seems like. Yeah. And Carter Munt's a dude. Like, he's just
they always have a Munt too. They always have had one, and he's always a dude. So yeah, they got another one now.
Yes, definitely a dude for Grangeville. Really exciting game. Otherwise, Priest Rivers had a weird year, just overall school wise, right? We don't need to get into everything that's going on there, but basically their football team is mostly freshmen. I don't know.
It's like what they were 2 years ago. Yeah. It's like a repeat.
Yeah. And so they kind of are doing this independent schedule this year where they're playing some varsity teams and not others. They did play Orofino on Friday, and they got the win 14-8. Priest River is officially 3-0, right? Yeah. This was a fun game. Kind of sneakily went under the radar because, Orofino, Priest River, Orofino's struggling. Obviously, they're 0-5. But this was a really fun game. Caden Dabrowski scores on a 55-yard touchdown run. Priest River's up 6-0. And that lead held until the third quarter. Check this out. Orofino had the ball first and goal inside the 10. Well, a couple of bad yardage plays. All of a sudden, it's 4th and goal from the 17. So, Orofino's got to go for it, right? So what do? They call up the trick play. So obviously, Drew Hanna tragically passed away earlier this summer. Was going to be Orofino's starting quarterback. Obviously, plans change. Aiden Olive moved from wide receiver to quarterback and had quarterbacked the Maniacs for the first couple of games. They finally decided we'll make another quarterback change. Aiden Olive's a good athlete, and we just need to get him the ball in different positions, not necessarily at quarterback. So Aiden Olive is kind of playing running back and receiver now for the Maniacs. But what do? They take the snap and they pitch it to Olive for a halfback pass because he's thrown lots of passes already this year. Olive hits Nolan Williams for the 17-yard touchdown to tie the game at 6. Olive then runs in the 2-point conversion. It's 8-6 Orofino. And they held that lead for a long time until late in the fourth quarter. Priest River scores again. It's Dabrowski scoring on a 1-yard run. It was either 3rd and goal or 4th and goal. Dabrowski scores from the 1 with just over 3 minutes to play, and Priest River gets the 14-8 win. But man, that was a fun game between these two.
No, back and forth affair between two teams that are, looking for bright spots in their respective seasons. I know that Orofino's still searching for that win, but a great job by Priest River to get that victory and get the dub on Friday night.
Definitely. 8-man football, White Pine League. Cami beats Troy 66-8. Colton O'Kane rushes for 3 touchdowns, also had a receiving touchdown. Potlatch beats Clearwater Valley 60-18. Jack Clark back from injury. He got hurt in that Logos game. He's back and had 5 touchdowns, 3 rushing, 2 passing. Prairie playing Lapway gets a big lead. Lapway makes a very spirited comeback in the second half, falls just short. Prairie wins 54-44. Dylan Eulencott rushes for 344 yards and 3 touchdowns in the victory. That is your top 4 right now. It's Logos 1, Cami and Potlatch tied for 2nd, Prairie in 3rd, and Prairie in 4th, and Lapway in 5th, but still within striking distance. It's all going to come down to the final 2 weeks here.
Yeah, you look at bids, obviously Logos in the driver's seat, and that's a dangerous team that everybody knows and they're talking about now. If you hadn't been paying attention or you're living under a rock, this team's super good. But you look at the other two there. Is Cami back now?
I think so.
I think they are. I think they're a dangerous team and they're lurking and kind of a sleeping giant. We saw them playing the state championship last year. They're getting back to health, but defensively they've been playing rock solid since that Logos game. Potlatch is still there too. Like you said, Jack Clark coming back, and that Logger team is right there. And then Prairie's kind of sneaking out there too. If you look at schedules that are coming up left, Prairie's got Clearwater Valley and Logos. So, you got those 2 games left. Prairie sneaks a game from Logos. Prairie's looking at their way in. And Logos, obviously, with what they're doing, they've got, their game against Prairie at the end of the year. That's the last week of the season. They got Troy this week. So if they're like kind of schedule watching and you're bouncing around looking at who's playing who, there's still some implications because Potlatch still has to play Cami.
Yeah, so here's how it looks. There are 3 auto bids to the playoffs from the White Pine, and I'm not sure a 4th team gets in. A 4th team didn't last year. There's only 3 at-large bids, and a lot of good teams fighting for them. So Logos is 5-0. They only need to win 1 of their last 2 games, and they clinch 1 of those auto bids. They're at Troy Friday night. We think they'll probably get the job done there. If they don't, they play Prairie in 2 weeks in a game that takes on a lot of importance. So Logos is 5-0. Cami and Potlatch are both 4-1. Cami plays Genesee this week. That's a win for the Cubs. Genesee is just struggling with numbers. And Cami with a win over these last 2 games would clinch a spot. Then they play at Potlatch in a game that will probably decide 2nd and 3rd place, right? That season finale, Cami at Potlatch, except Potlatch has to travel to Lapway this week. Lapway we've seen is dangerous, and if Lapway wins,
snake pit, man, you could get bit there.
Are you a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan? Have you been watching the Marvel movies at all, Scaggs?
No.
Okay. I was gonna make a
whatever reference you're about to throw at me would go over my head so fast.
I was gonna make a reference to the multiverse. It's where there's all these multiple universes and there's chaos. Basically, Lapway can introduce that with a win against Potlatch. And honestly, it wouldn't shock me if Lapway went to Potlatch and they're hosting Potlatch if they won at home. So Potlatch has the trickiest road here at Lapway, home versus Kamei. Prairie's got Clearwater Valley. CV's kind of taking it on the chin a little bit this year. They've had some significant injuries to that team. So for Prairie, it's do or die. Prairie has to win out. They have to win out. They can't lose anymore. Logos only needs to win once. Kamei only needs to win once. Potlatch with one win.
Has a dangerous 2-game stretch here to close things out.
They do. And that's why I just don't feel comfortable saying, oh yeah, Potlatch, we'll see you in the playoffs. I don't know. There's a lot to be determined here still. What we do know is Prairie needs to win out, as does Lapway. Lapway's got to win out too.
Yeah, they got to win out, and and hope for some help, I think, on the other side of things. But I would look at, as far as you want to say, hypothetical locks. Logos and Kamei look as good of a lock as anybody. Potlatch is right there. They're close. I mean, if they split, I still see them getting in. But yeah, Prairie, Lapway needs some help, but they can certainly make things interesting. Prairie, with having Logos in the end, they're going to have to pull a shocker in their last game if they're going to hope to get in the playoffs. But Lapway, with that closeout to the stretch, they can make things interesting if they go undefeated and they pull a shocker Friday night and beat Potlatch. But I don't know. I see that Potlatch group just taking care of business. I really do.
You never know.
White Pine is dangerous with those. If, say, Kamei, Potlatch, Logos get in, that is a dangerous group of 3 teams to get into the playoff. Like, nobody statewide wants to play any of those teams.
Nope, I wouldn't. Kamei still scares me the most, I think. I know Logos got the big win over Kamei, but Kamei's done it in the play. When you get to the playoffs, sometimes your eyes get wide, and this is a new experience for Logos, and Kamei's been there and done it. So I don't know. It'll be a lot of fun though. 1A D2. Oh boy, did you see the game Gage Crow had for Lewis County last week? Yeah,
that was, you talk about having the 8-man Prepcast and every 8-man podcast. He's a 3-star. He's going to be in the talks for that one. That was a cool affair for him. So yeah,
he rushed for 410 yards.
It's like some dude's seasons, man. Like
in one game, 410 yards, 5 touchdowns. Crazy. Still wasn't enough. Tri-Valley wins on a walk-off 62-56.
Basically, sorry to interrupt you. Didn't Lewis County have a center that's only like 140 pounds? It was a freshman.
Yes.
Sorry.
The Idaho 8-man Twitter account, if you're not following, you need to, because nobody does more to promote the game of 8-man football and promote these high school kids than the Idaho 8-man Twitter account run by Will Henneke, who is on the Prepcast every single week with us. And you're right. Lewis County's got a very small center that holds his own. Tri-Valley won this game 62-56. It came down to basically ball inside the 5. Tri-Valley, there's like 10 seconds left. Tri-Valley's trying to call timeout. They don't have a timeout. So there's some confusion there. And in the confusion, and somebody tell me if I got this wrong, because I wasn't there. I heard this all secondhand. In the confusion, they set the ball and the clock may have expired, but because of the chaos, Tri-Valley was able to snap the ball and get it off. And Jace Wagoner, their quarterback, scores on a 3-yard run as time expires, or time had expired, and he scores. A very chaotic ending to the game. Lewis County comes up short. But Lewis County's a fun team. And
they can score. Yeah, absolutely.
But the problem with them, and this has been their problem the last couple of years, is they're not so good at stopping the other team from scoring either. Yeah. So we've seen 2 years ago, it came down to basically Lewis County. And so this Friday, Lewis County plays Deary, and this will decide the second and final playoff spot. There's no doubt about it. Kendrick's already got the one spot. And the winner of this game will get that second and final bid to the state playoffs. Deary, I will say, has looked consistently better this year, while also acknowledging that Lewis County has played the more difficult schedule. So take that for what it's worth. Last year, when these two teams played, basically decided that second playoff spot, Lewis County won a defensive game 18-14, which we don't see a lot of with Lewis County, but 18-14. And then you may remember this 2 years ago, Lewis County was playing Timberline at the end of the season. Same scenario. Winner of that game would basically get that second spot to the playoffs. Lewis County scored 66 points. Problem is they allowed 78 and lost.
Yeah. No,
and that's their thing. They have a hard time stopping the other team from scoring sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, but we look at offensive potency. Lewis County certainly right there. Defensive, though, Deary in my mind's got the edge. I look at them getting the second bid coming out of the White Pine. But Kendrick's got a fun game this weekend too. I mean, a late season non-conference, but that's going to be another test for Coach Hobart's crew. I think playing up the classification, you're going to see more of these next year. So when the classifications change, they're going to be moving on up, and we'll see it. I mean, a Kendrick Logos game next year, come on now, obviously the names will be a little bit different for both programs, but you're still going to get some of the same flair with that matchup. I don't want to look too far ahead, but Kendrick, it looks to be on a collision course with a third consecutive title, but I don't know if they're going to get pushed like they did last year necessarily. I don't know I can aggravate some fans statewide, but this Tigers team is special, and they were special last year. But you look at what Ty Kep and the other kids on that group are doing; it's just absolutely uncommon. And there's so much talent on that field for an 8-man team. It's crazy. They'd beat most of the 2As in 11-man football. They'd win at 2A. I mean, let's just be real. That's a team that they beat any classification. They win a bunch of games.
Yep. It's going to be really interesting to see how this all kind of shakes out. I will say Kendrick almost lost last year in the championship to Dietrich, and I kind of see it's the same story this year. It's Kendrick, and to me it's Camas County. They're on this collision course, and in one game, who knows what can happen, but you're right. Kendrick this week, North Idaho game night live from Homedale, which is kind of counterintuitive, but
on the turf. Yeah.
Yes. Kendrick traveling down to Homedale to play Grace in a neutral site game. Grace is a 1A D1 program. And by the way, they're 6-1. So they're pretty good.
They're a good team.
That'll be Friday on IdahoSports.com at 3 p.m. Little Friday afternoon football for you. You can check that
matinee out before the little appetizer to the main course Friday night. So
I mean, here's what I would do. I'd tune in and watch Kendrick play Grace, and then I would drive my butt to Craigmont to watch that Deary Lewis County game, because that's going to be fun. That's what I would do.
Or you can go drive down to Lapway and watch Potlatch and Lapway play. I mean, there's some good games. You could stay in Coeur d'Alene. You could go watch Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls. There's going to be some dandy ball games going around. I think the Lakeland Moscow game could be entertaining. Well, actually, no, there's a week off for Lakeland. So, they're playing non-conference this week, but the final game of the schedule will come next week when they play Moscow. But sorry, I'm a week early on that one, but that's going to be a fun game, I think, too. I think that'll be an interesting affair with, I don't want to say a ton of implications on the line, but that's a Moscow team that's hungry for a league win. They haven't had one in a few years. And so, looking ahead for next week, that's gonna be a fun game. But Lakeland taking on Timberlake this weekend, and I had Timberlake. I got a chance to watch them a couple weeks ago against Sugar. That's a team that, man, if they pass the ball more, that Timberlake team is lethal. I just look at it, and I don't want to question coaching, play calling, but Cole Mettinger's a stud at quarterback, and if they got some tall receivers out there at the tight end, and they got a solid target out there for him as well. That's a team that, they could pose some danger to some of the other teams. Sugar is just Sugar. We know what Sugar Salem is, but I know that we kind of didn't get to talk about Timberlake last week because they looked like they got shellacked. But we watched that game, and it's that's really not that bad of a game. I mean, stat-wise, it was fairly close. It was just Timberlake stalled out in the red zone 4 times in that game without getting points.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's another little added thing at the end of the Prepcast as we wrap things up, but we didn't get to talk about it last week. But, that's a team to watch out for, I think, moving towards the playoffs.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the backs, right? Lenz and Tebby and Higgins, but Yetter is a great wide receiver.
Yetter's a dude, and
yeah.
They were without Vaughn Higgins in that Sugar Salem game, and they were able to pass very effectively against that Sugar Salem team. And if they can do more of that and get more looks, I think it opens up the running attack too. But that's just another little tidbit I think to watch. I think Timberlake gets a playoff win this year with that group.
It should be a lot of fun, no doubt about it. It's all coming to a head here as we are 2 weeks away from the end of the regular season, believe it or not. New bracketology post coming up as soon as I can get Scaggs to stop. No, I'm just kidding. I gotta write. I got
my microphone stand. Yeah,
I gotta write it all still. So be on the lookout for that late Wednesday, early Thursday on IdahoSports.com. All right, we went long on this one, but we're at the point here where we can't gloss over anything because it's all important, because it's all postseason related. So hang with us. It'll be a little longer for the next couple of weeks, but that's good. That's a good thing. There's lots of good things to talk about. So yeah,
got a long way to go and a short time to get there. So
that's right. Another Scaggsism.
That's a song. I stole that straight up from a song.
I know, but nobody would think to come up with that except you in the moment. So
yeah, me or like Paul Kingsbury, but yeah.
Right. All right. Well, for Ryan Scaggs and Paul Kingsbury, I guess, why not? I'm Brandon Bainey, and we will see you next time on the North Idaho Prepcast at IdahoSports.com.